Something happened today that nobody saw coming. Something that will change the economics of this entire war permanently. The United Arab Emirates, one of the most important trading nations in the Middle East, announced today that it is suspending all trade with Iran. Every product, every shipment, every business deal, every economic connection between two countries that share a coastline and have traded with each other for centuries, suspended, gone, overnight. And that is only one of the explosive developments that happened today in this war. Because today Trump also admitted something that destroyed whatever was left of his credibility on this conflict. Earlier this week, he told the world that America had established a secret back channel, a direct line of communication, with Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, the most powerful military organization in Iran. He said talks were happening quietly behind the scenes and that a deal was coming. The IRGC immediately denied it, and today, Trump himself said the opposite. He posted that there are no talks and no conversations happening with Iran at all. Zero, none. The back channel does not exist. He made it up, or someone told him something that was not true and he repeated it. Either way, today the President of the United States publicly contradicted himself on the most important diplomatic claim of this 6-month war. And the consequences of that contradiction are enormous. Stay with me, because today, August 19th, 2026, day 173 of the US-Iran war, is a day where everything that was already broken got more broken, and you need to understand exactly what that means and where it leads. Let us start with the UAE trade suspension, because this is the story that most people are not fully understanding yet, even though it is one of the most significant economic moves of this entire conflict. The UAE does not just trade with Iran casually. The two countries share one of the busiest trade corridors in the Middle East. Dubai, the commercial capital of the UAE, has historically been a hub through which enormous volumes of goods flow into and out of Iran. Electronics, food, medicine, industrial equipment, spare parts. All of it move through UAE ports, UAE banks, UAE logistics networks. Even during periods of American sanctions, trade continued at significant volumes through unofficial channels routed through the UAE. That is now over. Today, the UAE government announced it is suspending all trade with Iran, citing regional escalations. The words regional escalations are a direct reference to yesterday's ballistic missile incident, where Iran fired 2 missiles toward UAE territory, with one landing inside UAE territorial waters. So here is what has happened in 48 hours. Iran fires missiles at the UAE. UAE responds by cutting all trade, and the economic consequences of that decision will be felt immediately. Not just in Iran, but across the entire region. Because the UAE was one of the last functioning economic bridges connecting Iran to global supply chains. With that bridge now closed, Iran's already devastated economy faces a new level of isolation that it has not experienced before. And Iran's economy is already in crisis. Today's reporting from inside the country makes that absolutely clear. Point-to-point inflation in Iran is running at 96%, nearly double in 1 year. Think about what that means for ordinary Iranian families. Everything costs twice as much as it did a year ago. Food, rent, medicine, clothing, transport, everything. And the poverty rate, which was already at 41% before this war began, is projected to rise to 45.5% by 2028, according to economic analysts tracking the situation. Nearly half the country living in poverty within 2 years. And that is before accounting for the additional economic shock of the UAE trade suspension that was announced today. So the question that everyone is asking, and that nobody in Washington seems to have a clear answer to, is this. If Iran's economy is collapsing at this speed, why is Iran still fighting? Why are they still firing missiles? Why are they still blocking the Strait of Hormuz? Why are they still refusing to negotiate? The answer is complicated, and it is one of the most important things to understand about this conflict. Because Iran's new leadership, the hardliners who rose to power after the assassination of the previous supreme leader, Twaisat, has made a calculated decision. Economic pain is manageable. Losing sovereignty is not. They believe that if they yield to American military pressure now, Iran will be permanently subordinate to American and Israeli interests in the region, and they would rather have 96% inflation than accept that outcome. That is not irrational. That is a strategic choice made by people who believe the stakes are existential. Now let us talk about Trump's back-channel disaster, because this is the story that exposes something deeply important about how this war is being managed from the American side. On Monday of this week, Trump announced publicly that his administration had established a direct back channel of communication with Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. This was presented as a significant diplomatic development, a secret line that could lead to talks, a sign that Washington was working behind the scenes to find a way out of the conflict. The IRGC immediately and publicly denied that any such back channel existed. A spokesperson said flatly, "Du afoi," there are no talks, there is no communication, there is no channel. And then today, 48 hours after making the original claim, Trump posted on his platform that there are no talks or conversations going on with Iran. None. So within 48 hours, the President of the United States claimed a back channel existed, had that claim denied by the very organization he said he was talking to, and then denied it himself. What does that tell you? It tells you one of three things. Either someone in the administration fed Trump incorrect information about diplomatic contacts that do not exist, or Trump invented the claim to project an appearance of diplomatic progress that is not real, or there was some kind of preliminary contact that both sides are now denying for their own reasons. None of those three explanations is reassuring, because in all three scenarios, the American public was given false information about the diplomatic status of an active war, and the countries that are watching this conflict, allies, neutral parties, adversaries, are all drawing the same conclusion. You cannot trust what Washington says about the state of its own diplomacy, and this matters enormously right now because the diplomatic picture is already critical. France announced today that it is expelling 2 Iranian diplomats from Paris. The reason is an incident last month where 2 French embassy employees in Tehran were detained and intimidated by Iranian security services. France says this was a violation of diplomatic immunity and an act of deliberate intimidation, and their response is to expel Iranian diplomats from French soil. Now add that to everything else. UAE cutting all trade, Trump lying about secret talks, France expelling Iranian diplomats. The 60-day deal expired with no agreement. Qatar says mediators are waiting before returning to talks, and Iran fired missiles at the UAE yesterday. Every single channel that could lead to a resolution of this conflict is either closed, compromised, or credibility damaged right now. The war has fewer exits today than it had yesterday, and it had very few exits yesterday. In part 2, I'm going to show you the one story that almost nobody is covering right now that could change everything. Iran's parliament speaker is in Baghdad today meeting with Iraq's leaders, and what Iraq is asking for, and what Iran's answer could mean, is the hidden key to understanding where this war goes next. Subscribe immediately and go to part 2, because this piece of the puzzle is the one that makes everything else make sense. While the world was watching UAE cut trade with Iran and Trump contradict himself on secret talks, something happened today in Baghdad that almost nobody in Western media covered, and it may be the most strategically important development of this entire war. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, flew into Baghdad today and met with Iraq's parliament speaker at the exact site where Qasem Soleimani was killed by an American drone strike in 2020. Think about that location choice for a moment. They did not meet in a government building. They did not meet in a neutral location. They met specifically at the spot where America assassinated Iran's most powerful military commander. That location was a message, and the message it sent to America, to the Gulf states, to the world, is that Iran and Iraq are standing together on the ground where America drew blood, and they are making decisions that will shape the next phase of this war. In part 2, I am going to tell you exactly what those decisions are and why they matter more than anything else that happened today. Let us start with what Iraq actually asked for in today's meeting, because this is where the story gets genuinely fascinating. Iraq's parliament speaker asked Iran to grant Iraqi oil exports going through the Strait of Hormuz what he called special status. Special status. In other words, Iraq is asking Iran to create a protected lane through the blockade specifically for Iraqi oil, not American oil, not UAE oil, not general international shipping, just Iraqi oil. And here is why that request is so significant. Iraq exports roughly 4 million barrels of oil per day. Most of that oil has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz or through pipelines connected to Gulf shipping routes. Since Iran began restricting traffic through the strait in February, Iraqi oil exports have been severely disrupted. Iraq's economy, which depends almost entirely on oil revenue, has been bleeding. Iraqi citizens are paying the price for a war they did not choose and did not start. And so Iraq's government is going directly to Tehran and saying, "We are not your enemy, protect our ships, let our oil through." Now think about what it means if Iran agrees. It means Iran has the power to selectively open and close the strait for different countries, to reward countries that it considers friendly, to punish countries it considers hostile, to use the world's most critical oil choke point as a tool of geopolitical leverage in the most precise and deliberate way. That is not the behavior of a country that is losing a war. That is the behavior of a country that has turned a narrow strip of water into one of the most powerful bargaining chips in the history of modern geopolitics. And America is watching this happen with very limited ability to stop it. Because here is the military reality that I keep coming back to. And that becomes more relevant every single day. America has burned through nearly 80% of its critical missile defense interceptors. Its precision weapons stockpile is critically depleted. Its sailors have been at sea for 9 months. Its wargame exercises in Germany showed that American forces were completely unprepared for the kind of warfare Iran and its allies have been conducting. And now Iran is in Baghdad, meeting with Iraqi leaders, building regional relationships, creating economic arrangements that give it leverage over countries America considers partners. All of this while America's diplomatic credibility is in tatters after Trump's back-channel lie. All of this while the UAE has cut all trade and is now demanding answers. All of this while France expels Iranian diplomats and the European diplomatic consensus around this war continues to deteriorate. America is fighting a 6-month war with depleted weapons, contradicted diplomacy, and shrinking alliances. Iran is conducting patient strategic outreach that is expanding its influence. Those two trajectories, one declining, one rising, tell you more about where this war is going than any single military strike or social media post. Let me now talk about what is happening inside Iran, because the domestic picture matters enormously for understanding how long Tehran can sustain this conflict. The numbers are brutal. Inflation at 96%, poverty rising toward 45% of the population, at least 444 executions in the first 7 months of this year alone, 71 in July alone, as the government cracks down on dissent and protests. The UN has recorded at least 56 national security-related executions since March. Iran's own president described his communication with the supreme leader as very difficult. There are what analysts are calling soft coup accusations being made against moderates within the Iranian government. And yet Iran is still fighting, still blocking the strait, still firing missiles, still sending its parliament speaker to Baghdad for strategic meetings. How? Because the Iranian system, whatever its internal tensions, is built to absorb economic pain in ways that democratic systems are not. The Revolutionary Guard controls enough of the economy to keep functioning even as ordinary citizens suffer. The new supreme leader, who is far more hardline than his predecessor, has consolidated power around a circle of people who see this war as a historic moment of resistance, and they are willing to impose enormous costs on their own population to win it. That calculation is brutal. It is also real, and it is one that American planners fundamentally underestimated when they decided 45 days of preparation was enough to break Iran. So where does this leave us today, on day 173 of a war that was supposed to last 2 weeks? UAE has cut all trade with Iran. Trump has publicly lied about and then denied a diplomatic backchannel. France is expelling Iranian diplomats. Iran's parliament speaker is in Baghdad building regional alliances. Iraq is asking Iran for protected oil passage through the blockade. Iran's economy is at 96% inflation, but its government is still functioning and still fighting. America's weapons are depleted. The diplomatic process is dead. The 60-day deal has expired, and the next phase of this war has no clear shape, no clear timeline, and no clear exit for either side. The most dangerous wars in history are not the ones that start with a bang. They are the ones that grind on past the point where anyone still believes in the original objective, where both sides are too committed to stop and too exhausted to win. This war is not there yet, but every day that passes without a genuine breakthrough in diplomacy, every missile that is fired, every trade route that is cut, every diplomatic expulsion and public lie brings it closer to that point. And when wars reach that point, they do not end cleanly. They end badly, for everyone. Comment below. Do you think Iraq's request for special oil status changes the balance of this war? And do you think Iran will use that as leverage to force a deal or to deepen the blockade? Subscribe, because this story is the most important geopolitical story of our generation, and I am going to be here covering every single move. 2 Iranian regime insiders just spoke to the Financial Times. Anonymously, secretly, because what they said is so explosive that saying it publicly would be dangerous even for them. And what they said is this: Iran has assessed striking American military assets in Europe. Not in the Middle East, not in the Gulf, in Europe. American bases on European soil, countries that are NATO members, countries that have nothing directly to do with this war, except that American forces stationed there could be used to support operations against Iran. This is not a threat that has been made publicly. This is an internal assessment, a calculation being made inside the Iranian military and government right now about whether to open a front that would be unlike anything this conflict has produced so far. And that is just one of the 4 or 5 developments that happened today that prove this war has crossed into territory that nobody in February thought was possible. Stay with me, because in the next 10 minutes, I am going to walk you through everything that happened today that the world is not fully processing yet. And when you see all of it together, the European targeting assessment, what happened in Bahrain, what happened in the Caspian Sea, and the list of demands Iran just issued, you will understand why today marks a turning point that cannot be undone. Let us start with the European targeting story, because this one requires careful understanding. 2 people described by the Financial Times as Iranian regime insiders said that Iran has internally assessed the possibility of striking American military assets in Europe. Now, what does that actually mean in practice? America has major military installations across Europe. Ramstein Air Base in Germany is one of the most important American military hubs on Earth. Aviano Air Base in Italy, Naval Station Rota in Spain, Lajes Field in Portugal. These are not small outposts. They are major logistics, command, and operational centers that support American military power globally, including in the Middle East. If Iran strikes one of them, even with a drone, even with a missile that causes limited damage, the consequences are catastrophic, because it would mean Iran has attacked NATO territory, and NATO's founding principle, Article 5, says that an attack on one member is an attack on all. So an Iranian strike on Ramstein Air Base in Germany is legally and militarily an attack on every NATO country simultaneously. It would trigger the largest coalition military response in history. And yet, 2 Iranian insiders told a major international newspaper that this option is being assessed. Why would Iran consider something so escalatory? Because Iran's strategy throughout this war has been to raise the cost of continued American military presence until Washington decides the price is too high. They started with the Strait. They moved to Gulf Arab states. They hit the UAE with missiles. And now they are signaling, through leaks to international media, that Europe is not off the table. That signal alone changes the calculations of every European government that has been watching this war from a distance. And while that assessment was leaking to the press, something else happened today that nobody expected. Iran attacked Amazon infrastructure in Bahrain. Let me say that again because it sounds almost unreal. Iran attacked Amazon, specifically Amazon Web Services infrastructure located in Bahrain, which is one of Amazon's major cloud computing regions serving the Middle East. Now, Bahrain hosts the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters. It is a critical American military partner, and Amazon Web Services, AWS, is not just a tech company. It runs significant infrastructure for American government agencies, defense contractors, financial institutions, and hospitals across the region. So when Iran attacks Amazon infrastructure in Bahrain, it is not just an economic attack on a tech company. It is an attack on the digital backbone that supports American military logistics, communications, and operations in the Gulf. This is a completely new dimension of warfare. Cyber-physical attacks on commercial infrastructure that has military significance. And it happened today. While the world was focused on the UAE trade suspension and the back-channel lie and the Hormuz shipping numbers. Now let me tell you about something that happened thousands of miles away from the Middle East, but that is deeply connected to this war. Ukraine struck Iranian vessels in the Caspian Sea today. Ukrainian drones or missiles, the exact method has not been confirmed, hit Iranian ships operating in the Caspian. Iran responded by accusing Ukraine of what it called a hostile and criminal act. Why did Ukraine do this? Because Iran has been supplying Russia with weapons, drones, missiles, and military technology that have been used against Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian soldiers for years. Ukraine and Iran have been on opposite sides of 2 different wars simultaneously, and today Ukraine decided to hit back, directly targeting Iranian assets in the Caspian Sea. What does this mean for the broader picture? It means Iran is now fighting on multiple fronts simultaneously against America and Israel in the Gulf, against the UAE economically, against Saudi Arabia through the Houthis in Yemen, against American interests in Europe through the threat assessment, against Amazon infrastructure in Bahrain, and now it has a fresh conflict with Ukraine in the Caspian, Iran is not just a regional power facing one opponent. It has become the central node of a global network of conflicts, and its enemies are starting to coordinate. Speaking of coordination, Saudi Arabia launched military strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen today. This is significant because Saudi Arabia has been trying to stay out of the direct US-Iran conflict for months. It has been negotiating. It has been watching. It has been calculating. But today, the Houthis, who are backed by Iran, attacked Red Sea shipping again, and Saudi Arabia responded with military strikes. This matters because it shows that Iran's proxy strategy, using the Houthis, using Iraqi militias, using Lebanese Hezbollah, is starting to drag more countries into direct military action. Every country that Iran uses as a proxy battleground eventually reaches a point where it fights back. Saudi Arabia is reaching that point, and when Saudi Arabia fights back against Houthi targets, it becomes a direct participant in a war that involves Iran, which means it becomes a potential target for Iranian retaliation, and Saudi Arabia produces 10% of the world's oil. Any serious disruption to Saudi oil production would send global energy markets into a crisis that makes the current situation look mild. Now let me tell you about Iran's list of demands, because this is the document that explains exactly what Tehran wants before it will even consider discussing a ceasefire. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Ghalibaf issued a formal list of conditions today that he said the US must meet before Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz. The list includes 2 core demands. First, America must lift all sanctions on Iranian oil exports. Second, America must end all military threats against Iran. Both of these demands were actually part of the original Memorandum of Understanding that expired 2 days ago. But here's the critical point. Iran is now presenting them as preconditions, things America must do before talks even begin, rather than things to be negotiated during talks. That is a fundamentally different diplomatic position. It means Iran is not saying, let us negotiate over these issues. It is saying, do these things first, then we will talk. And America's position is equally firm. It will not lift sanctions as a precondition, only as part of a verified agreement. So both sides are standing at opposite ends of a corridor, each demanding the other walk through the door first. And the corridor is the Strait of Hormuz. And every day that nobody walks through that door, the global economy bleeds a little more. And then, in the middle of all this serious and genuinely frightening geopolitical escalation, Iran's consulate in Hyderabad, India, did something that went viral around the world. They posted a map of the United States with California highlighted, with the words "New Territory of Islamic Republic of Iran" written across it. It was a direct response to Trump's post claiming the Strait of Hormuz as American territory. And it was clearly meant as a joke. But here's the thing about jokes made by governments during wars. They are not really jokes. They are messages. The message was, your claim to international waters is as absurd as our claim to California. Take your territorial declaration as seriously as you expect us to take ours. And the map went viral, shared millions of times, because it captured something that a lot of people around the world are feeling right now, that the gap between the rhetoric being produced by the Trump administration about this war, we control the strait, Iran has no navy, they are defeated and fleeing, and the actual reality on the ground, UAE cutting all trade, Iran firing missiles, Iran assessing strikes on Europe, Iran attacking Amazon, Ukraine striking Iranian ships in the Caspian, Saudi Arabia bombing Houthis. That gap has become so enormous that it has become darkly comic. The California map went viral because truth has a way of finding its audience, and the truth right now is that this war, on day 173, is bigger, more complex, more dangerous, and further from resolution than it was on day 1. Comment below, do you think Iran will actually strike European targets? Or is this a bluff designed to force a deal? And subscribe, because tomorrow this war will move again. It always does, and you need to be here when it does.